Nobody can touch me because I would get blacklisted for that.
The persona in the front that we put forward into the universe.
You'd be standing and
Hi, I'm Gabby. Because I will miss that aspect.
something else. Yeah.
You're people, you're not creatures. I'm so sorry. I don't care if you hate me.
No. Tissue paper.
I dated a lot of Sagittarius men, and that just was not working.
Girls love her, boys love her.
And those connections and ideas change. 5% of podcasts don't make it past the first year. Hey guys, it's Gabby, and we're back with the Z-List Celebrities. And today I have a name twin with me. Hi, this is Gabrielle. This month we're doing all things kind of astrology, psychics, New Year stuff going into the new year. And I've actually been following you on TikTok for a while for many different reasons, but you've really drawn me in with a lot of your psychic content, but also the Wolf Project, which we will talk about. But tell us a little bit about you, just to kind of, set the scene first.
Okay, yeah. So my name is Gabrielle Hopkins. I am the founder of the Wolf Project, which you were talking about, which is a nonprofit that basically tries to monitor the internet for child safety purposes, but basically focusing on pedophile activity. We do report those individuals to law enforcement and aim to get them incarcerated. But along with that, yes, I am a psychic. I do read tarot, but I am mostly clairvoyant and clairsentient. So I do a lot of my readings with visions and through feeling. So, yeah, the psychic thing is kind of on the side. It's not like my whole main personality, though I do love spirituality. And I love that side of me. I love how I can help people in that realm of life. But yeah, I mean, like you said, most of my content is focused on catching pedophiles. So
Yeah, well, and I really love, I read tarot, and everybody that's listening usually already knows that, but I'm not psychic. And I tell people all the time that like tarot and like psychic abilities are so different, because anybody can read tarot if they have intuition and like that knowledge to do it and are trained by other people to do so. But
yeah,
like the psychic ability is completely different. So when people sit down for a tarot reading with me, I'm always like, by the way, I'm not a psychic. So like, don't ask me to talk to your grandpa. Don't ask me what's happening in your future. Like, I'm literally just reading the cards you're pulling. I have no ability like that. But I mean, I think it's incredibly cool. I actually, random question, and I didn't even like think about asking this one. What's your astrology sign? I'm just curious.
I'm a Gemini.
You're a Gemini. Do you have
Yeah.
Scorpio in your chart?
Um, that's a great question. I'm not exactly sure. I want to say Scorpio moon, but I'm not exactly sure.
I'll have to take a peek at your chart after this and let you know, because
Yeah.
I've got this running theory that Scorpios are the best psychics and readers. So
You
like,
know,
all of the psychics I know have like a lot of Scorpio in their chart. It doesn't have to be like their big three, but like there's a lot of Scorpio placements. So I'm just
what is
curious.
your sign?
I'm an Aquarius, but I have Scorpio in my rising. So
Okay.
I
All
have
right,
I have
cool.
a little bit in there, but it's definitely not like, I feel like I definitely can sense when things are off and like presences, but it's not crazy anything like that. We do have a house ghost, which the TikTok internet sphere loves to make fun of, because I'll be filming videos and the door will like aggressively slam shut. And like, I'm always just like, oh yeah, that's Harold. And people are like, why are you so calm about that? Like, what is going
Yeah.
on there? And I'm like, he doesn't bother us, but I definitely don't see anything. I don't like, more than just like weird things happen around the house and like I notice those things. I'm
Yeah.
not in touch with that side of myself. But when did you kind of figure out that you kind of had those abilities?
My mom has always said that I picked up on things, even whenever I was a kid. I remember picking up on things as a child, but I grew up in the Christian faith, and then whenever I went to college, I just really delved into it. So, um, the particular church that I got involved with, I was like hyper obsessed Christian, like AWOL crazy, like super mission trip oriented. I wanted to do all the things Christian. I went to church every Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday. I was a leader of every Bible study possible, So um, the particular church that I was involved with just had a very negative connotation around psychics and spiritualism. And so I shut that off. And so what messages I did get, I attributed it to prophecy, which is just their term for a psychic. Um, But I'll say this, I wasn't as confident. So I would get the dreams, I'd get the visions, I'd get the feelings, and then I would go talk to the person, and maybe it just didn't land, and it just ruined my confidence, you know? But also I wasn't confident, period, in myself, you know? So um, it wasn't until about 2 years ago now that I started really going on like my third spiritual awakening, and I started reading Dolores Cannon. I don't know if you know of Dolores Cannon at
I
all,
don't.
but you just got to read her books. She's
Okay.
a hypnotherapist, yes, and so she does a lot of past life regression therapy, but a lot of times the higher self will come through in the sessions, and they, ask questions to the higher self, who is God, what happens when we die, and all those things. So I went down that rabbit hole, and almost went crazy. I was seeing angel numbers everywhere. Like I literally was like, am I manic? Am I in spiritual psychosis? Like they're everywhere. Um, I started having more vivid dreams. I was getting messages, and this time like they were landing. So yeah, 2 years ago, I just had this massive spiritual awakening. I decided to deconstruct from Christianity. Obviously, my personal belief, I still love Christ. I totally stand by the vision of Christ, but I just don't see myself as a Christian. And through deconstructing and through finding myself, that's kind of when I owned it, I guess you can say.
Well, and I
2 years ago.
love your perspective on it because I was raised Catholic and my mom's Jewish. So like I've been around all religions. I personally took my own path. It definitely falls more in the Buddhist like Hinduism vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked about that a lot on my podcast. So like I know the audience really knows like my journey with that. But I view God as more of like the universe. That's just my vibe. But my fiance, his dad's a pastor, and like I've experienced in the last couple of years. Because, after I turned 18, I was not forced anymore by my parents. Not that they like necessarily were forcing, but, you raised them in a religion setting. And like I did the religion thing. And when I was 18, that went away. So I was really able from 18 up into my late 20s, like being able to just do whatever I wanted. Whereas he's coming from it and bringing it back into my life in the last 3 years in the sense that his family's very honed in on it. And they're the same way of like, oh, psychic ability would definitely be maybe demonic or things like that. And I think it's really cool that you're able to still, because I feel like a lot of the times when Christianity drives people away because of their strict beliefs, it like you lose faith in that. So I think it's really cool and unique that you're able to still believe in God as a whole and still have this belief, and they can simultaneously exist, because I feel like a lot of people feel that they can't. I know that a lot of times I have a lot of girls that I do regular readings for, and they're very Christian girls, and I almost feel like they're backdoor like DMing me, and they like feel like they're naughty or something, and I'm like, it's not like, it's literally, it's honestly, if you want to call it, it's God messaging through tarot, or it's
Yeah.
God using astrology. I'm a strong believer. One of my really good friends, Ashley, a little shout out to her. She's very religious, and she's always getting tarot readings with me. She really loves astrology, and she's like, God wouldn't have created astrology if it weren't supposed to be utilized and real. And I thought that was a really cool perspective, because I feel like a lot of Christians have the like strictness in themselves that they're not in the discipline. I know it's discipline, but to not be able to allow other thought processes. And that's
Mm.
always been my beef with organized religion. So
Mm.
I'm just like a really strong believer in, not organizing it. I will say my fiance and I, Kyle, we've talked about how we want to raise kids, and I'm very big on, I feel like once they're old enough to understand it, like maybe 10 or 11, we're going to try all religions and let them make their choice at 18. I was like, if you want to be at church every Sunday, that's great. Or if you want to practice at home and do your own thing, if you want to be Jewish and go to temple, that's fine. Like, I don't care what that is, Muslim, whatever it is, but I want it to be 1,000% their choice. And I still think that at the end of the day, it should be something you practice at home, not necessarily in a space. I don't know. That's where we see, and that kind of leads segue into me for the Wolf Project a little bit, is I feel like we see a lot of problems with pedophilia, specifically where I come from in the Catholic Church and
Yeah.
organized religion. So kind of
Mhm.
walk me through how you started with the Wolf Project and where kind of maybe religion fit into that.
Oof. Yeah. Actually, whenever I was still a Christian, so most of my transformation started happening when I was 19. I was getting the visions already, and I was getting the dreams. And so one of the very first visions that I can honestly say, oh, that was a vision, it wasn't just a daydream. Um, it was of girls being trafficked. And so I don't know how, in detail I can go with it, but what's happening to these little girls is horrendous, like 10 times worse. I always say it's 10 times worse than what anybody ever thinks. And so I had these visions. Um, I was seeing what was happening. It was almost like I was a ghost in the room watching it happen. They're in like separate rooms. It's in one like big house. It's very dimly lit. The girls they're hooked up. They're chained to the beds. They're hooked up to electricity. They're heavily overdosed on opioids to keep them docile. And then, if they need them to be more lively, they'll shoot them with electricity. And we're talking like 7-year-old little girls all the way up until, in their mid-20s. And so hearing them scream, hearing them cry, and I just never will forget. Oh my God, it actually like really hurts to talk about. This is actually the first time I've actually talked about the visions. Hearing them scream and hearing God say to me, and not in English, but in light language, in just that telepathic communication. They're waiting on someone to save them. And that was just kind of the motive that I had. And it tore up my life. I had those first few visions. I went into like a manic depressive episode. I didn't eat, sleep, leave my room other than use the bathroom. But, after I wasn't eating for a couple of days, I didn't need to go to the bathroom. So I was severely dehydrated. And like on the third day, my friends like broke into my room. They're trying to like drug me. I was completely mute. I've never experienced anything like this since. I couldn't speak. They were trying to get me to talk, and it was like I wanted to, but there was like nothing I could say. My body would just not produce words. And I knew for sure that none of them would understand. No one could. I wouldn't, a couple days ago, I wouldn't have understood. So there was no point in me talking because no one would get it. And on the third day, I was like, this is it. Like, I've got to take my life. I can't keep seeing these girls. I was 19. I'm stuck in college. There's nothing I can do about it. So this is hell. Like, this is exactly what hell is. And so I was unsuccessful in my attempt and kind of moved forward from that point going, I don't care what it takes. I'm going to find some way to help. And a couple years go by. I finished college. I ended up teaching high school chemistry and biology and anatomy. And I taught that for 2 years. Was trying to find my groove. I decided to go to vet school, so I'm actually going to vet school in in August now. But I was trying to find my groove, and I had some downtime, and I was going to join this organization. It's called Destiny Rescue. They're great. They do rescue missions for trafficking victims in other countries, and so I was talking with them, and they were going to station me in either South America or over in Vietnam. And something, I just felt weird. Like it was everything I could have ever wanted, but something wasn't right, And so I remember my friends going, okay, well, you just need to start your own. And I was like, I can't. Can I cuss? Am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah, you can
Okay.
cuss. This is like free for all. We have talked about everything on here. You're good. Say what you want. If I have to bleep it for YouTube or if I get blown off YouTube, who cares? We've got Apple, we got Spotify, we're good.
Okay, good. I was just like, I can't fucking do that. I mean, like, I grew up in a small town. I'm just little me. I didn't have a TikTok following or anything like that. I just didn't see myself as good enough to do something that big, So, yeah, and one day I just kind of said, fuck it, and I made the Wolf Project. I literally blacked out with the name. People ask me about the name. I don't know how it got there. It got there on a piece of paper. I really truly believe it was just a God thing. But there are several different reasons. Wolves hunt in packs and they also can hunt alone. And that's really unique to the wolf. And that's what we in the Wolf Project do. We hunt for them in the pack. And then also we go out individually and hunt as well. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the divine intervention that brought me to the point of, okay, I've got to do something myself, and it's going to have to be me, and it can't be anybody else, so.
No, I think that's incredible. And I definitely feel like the way you talked about the other organization and everything, I know that those exist. And like I grew up in that generation of like my dad and I watched Taken together, and my dad makes Liam Neeson jokes, and like he's like, I'm gonna come get you, and we all like know realistically that makes absolutely no sense. But I think that that's part of the problem with our society is like we have movies like that, and yes, it's entertaining, but like people don't realize it's actually extremely like if you go overseas, I feel like, I don't know, you probably know that statistic or at least the likelihood versus me pulling it out of my ass, but I'd imagine once you get shipped overseas, like you're not coming back. Like very difficult. And it's like so weird to think about that concept because we are raised with like these movies where random dads go save you, and like it's just not realistic. And I think it makes people a little bit almost not deaf to it, but kind of unaware of like the actual severity of it. Like,
right,
when you're kidnapped and trafficked over like borders, that's it. Like, FBI's not coming for you. Like, State Department's not coming for you. Like, it's harder. And I think I've gained a lot of perspective on that. Not even from a trafficking standpoint, but my fiance is ex-military. He was on special teams. And when he separated, he went overseas to do private contracting because there's just things our government will not do over there. And it's so wild the operation he can get done out of the military versus what he got done in the military. It's insane. So like these systems are so important because quite literally like our government won't and can't do it. So it's good to hear they're out there because I didn't know how real they actually were. But tell us a little bit more about how the Wolf Project kind of functions and how it functions, and you protect your guys' selves, but also legality ways.
Yeah. Well, a lot of things where we're trying to move in a direction where we do the physical rescue missions and can send people boots on the ground situation. But right now we're focused on online safety, which is one of the major ways of trafficking these days. It's a lot less hassle. It's a lot less risky. It's easier for the trafficker too. So we're trying to get a lockdown on that. And so what that looks like is, a predator will approach a child. It's not just, a grown man wanting to sleep with a young girl. It can be that, don't get me wrong, but they're trying to get photos out of the girls or trying to get videos out of the girls or boys. And then they'll use it as blackmail if they don't provide more imagery. And then once they have the imagery, they'll sell it. And so that's what we call sextortion or online trafficking. And so we try to find those guys. And once we have those individuals and their locations, then you report them to law enforcement. And so the way that the Wolf Project works is it's a network of individuals who have these fake accounts. We are set up into special little task force. We call them fleets. And they work together to make their accounts look more realistic and, really hone in on the reality of what an average middle schooler or an average teenager is doing, so that they just really, truly, if you came across them, you would never know it's not a kid. So they work together, make those accounts look more realistic. A lot of times the traffickers will they'll message one, go through their following list, and message their friends, which is perfect for us because one person can get a name out of it while the other person is working on getting a location out of them. So we gather all this intel, put it into a document. Once we have the information that we need and we have the incriminating evidence, we'll call their police department and say, we plan to expose this person, but we would love if law enforcement did something about it. Because what we found is when we say, hey, we're, in essence, a bunch of civilians that are just on the internet, just girly things, doing this, they're like, no, don't do that. Where's your father kind of thing. And so they don't want anything to do with it. So I started coming at them like, we're going to do something about this. If you don't. So if you don't do anything, I'm going to tell the whole world that I know who this person is. I'm going to ruin their reputation. I'm going to make sure to take yours down with them because I told you who they were and what they were doing to the babies in your jurisdiction, and you failed to do anything about it. And so when you say it like that, obviously I'm a little more professional, but I get the message across. They they're so happy to help you. You know, it's crazy. So they really have been great whenever we start approaching it that way. And so, yeah, from that point, they'll take the information we give them, they'll launch their own investigation, and then
Don't you love being a girl in a man's world?
I literally, oh my God.
Like, you have to threaten them to get them to do what you want.
I'm telling you, DHS showed up to one of our Reapers' homes, couldn't find them, showed up to their work in black suits, black Suburbans, and my Reaper calls me and she's like, DHS just tracked me down and told me not to do this anymore because it's too dangerous. And I'm like, give me that mother phone number right now. So I call him and he's like, it's just really dangerous. Like, we have people come after us all the time. And I was like, me fucking too. Okay? No, you're not special. Do you want a fucking cookie? Like, me too. But we're in it together. And I respect you and I honor what you do. You respect and honor what I do. And he's like, it's just not safe. Duh, no shit.
That to me is a waste of resources, in my opinion, from my tax dollars, because it's not breaking the law. You can talk to whoever you want online. And this is coming from, I was a criminal justice major in college, actually, just to fill you in on my passion in this.
Okay.
I was a criminal justice major in college. I was going to go to law school. Criminal law was going to be that. Like, I was very invested in that, worked for the DA for years. And I know my rights in that sense. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, you're wasting our tax dollars bothering civilians who aren't doing anything illegal, but you won't go arrest the person that's doing something illegal.
Right.
Like,
and I was pissed.
Don't get it. So it's definitely one of those things where I do feel like there needs to be a shift in that. And obviously, as we're increasing our social media and internet use, they're going to need more manpower on this. Why any department would refuse that, I don't really understand. But, I mean, I get, like, obviously they don't want us showing up. And I'm sure you have rules in place for all of your Reapers, but, like, you shouldn't be showing up to pedophiles' houses. Like, that's not safe. But, like, if you're doing something behind the screen and your identity isn't being revealed, by all means. Like, I feel like if I were going to do something like this, I'd have a burner phone. My name isn't connected to it. Like, and I'm sure, like I said, you have these in place and you run people through this. It's being done properly. It's probably being done safer than the cops are doing it anyway.
No, for sure. Yeah, I think their panties are in a wad because a bunch of girls are doing it better than them, and they don't like that. And I'm being serious. I mean, they're just threatened by that. And to be on the phone with a grown man who does this for a living, and he's telling me, no, it's too dangerous for you. Like, first of all, I'm an educated woman. I know exactly how dangerous it is. But I'm not going to sit here and cling to my life while our daughters are losing theirs. So don't ask that of me, you know? And then he was like, trying to push the narrative again that it's too dangerous for us. And I'm like, once again, your name isn't on my birth certificate. You are not my father. Like, this is not your role, mister. Play your part.
I'm sure it's not helpful. Not only are you a woman, but I'm sure age plays a factor too. Like, you're young.
Yeah.
I'm sure people look at it and they're like, she doesn't know what she's doing. She could screw up her life. And, like, it's like, age isn't really a factor in this. If anything, I feel like we're the generation that knows more about social media than they do. So it's like, we have more to offer. I mean, we grew up on it. Like, I had a MySpace. Like, I'm on the ground floor. Let me live. Like,
I love it. Yeah, and you're completely right. Yes, we do. We have a system in place. Everyone operates under VPNs. Most people get a burner phone or a burner device to operate on. They have to go through a training so that they know what they're getting themselves into. They know how to manipulate conversations. They know, all the different safety steps, different emails, different alias, different everything to make sure that, it's kind of foolproof. I'm not going to say it's the same as riding an airplane. And this is what I told them. Excuse me. In the unlikely event of a water landing, they always say that. It's the same thing here. We've never had an instance where someone tried to find someone other than me, but it's just because my face is attached to the organization, know? But as long as you lay low, you do your part, you operate within the rules and guidelines that we tell you, you're going to be fine. You're fine. So, yeah, I mean, it's not saying that it's no risk at all. There's always a risk involved in putting someone in prison, possibly for the rest of their life, but if you do it right, you can be fine. Yeah.
Well, and so here's a randomish question that I just kind of thought about. because I know there's a whole nother layer of exploitation. When you're creating these burner accounts, are you starting to dip into the AI generated portion? Are you using girls that are 18 but look young and they volunteered their photos? Because like that's the other thing I always wonder and worry about with these bait accounts is like if you're using a young child to bait somebody, it's almost just like it's not as
Just as
bad, but
bad.
it feels pretty dirty too. So it's like,
Oh yeah.
what are you guys doing to kind of prevent from that kind of exploitation?
Yeah, that's one of our top rules. It's actually illegal to post another child. So you can't, I mean, like pose as another child, not you can post
Gotcha.
another child. But so yeah, we say absolutely no pictures of actual minors. They're more than welcome to post pictures of them when they were younger. A lot of the people who sign up for this already look very young, but there's also a great portion of reapers who don't. And so, just like you were saying, they use a lot of AI. They use a lot of like TikTok and Snapchat filters um, that make them look younger. They actually do a really good job, and for the most part, they're fucking stupid, so they never question it.
So wild to me because I've honestly, Kyle's not here to vouch, or I would call him in, but I have been following your page for a while and like I get very passionate about this stuff, especially coming from criminal
Mhm.
justice background and
Yeah.
not doing it anymore. I completely took a different career path. So like sometimes I miss that aspect. And I've always said, I'm gonna sign up for it. Like I'm gonna do it. And then Kyle looks at me and he's like, Gabby, you literally look like 35. Good luck. Like you're not gonna be able to pull it off. And I'm like, that's fair. I've always looked older. When I was 16, I looked 22. I was able to get into a bar at 16. So it's like, I'm like, I can't, it would have to be AI because there's no filter on this internet that's going to make me look like a child. It's just not happening.
I don't know. You might be surprised, but we do have people who have like Adobe Photoshop and stuff like that. But AI is great. I mean, it's
Yeah.
fairly inexpensive too, so that you can get tattoos
It's
edited out,
expanding.
and
Yeah. It's crazy.
yeah,
It's expanding. I was like, between my face looking old and like the big old deities, like this, nobody's going to believe I'm 15. But I was like, I really want to help, but it could never be my face. It could
yeah.
never
I
be
mean,
me.
we have people in their 60s who do it. I mean, it's all
Crazy.
just about what time you've got to edit photos and stuff like that. But yeah, it's definitely possible.
So, okay, are you allowed to, if you can't, that's totally fine, but I would love to
Mhm.
hear like one of the craziest cases you've been on and kind of like walk us through what happened.
Oh, okay. Gosh, there's one that actually didn't go anywhere that I wish it did, and there's another one that's ongoing that is like crazy. The first one that never ended up going anywhere because he disappeared off the face of the planet was he was approaching some of our accounts asking the 14-year-old girls to like
Oh
like
no.
shish kebab him and cook him over a fire and eat him. That was like his kink. And
Oh,
so when I got those screenshots, yeah, I was like, you know what, guys, I actually quit. I'm never showing back up. Love you guys so much. That was wild to deal with cannibalism. And then the second one that is ongoing, and it's really close to closing, but I'm actually about to call the police department and give them a run for their money because I'm sick of this. But it was a father, son, and daughter, and they were all three approaching, and that we're actually doing a documentary, and this is like the first episode. So I can't share too much, but they were all three hunting down these girls, um,
well,
and trying to get images.
that screams classic case of abusive father grooming his children to do his dirty work, is what that sounds like to
Oh
me.
yeah, yeah, and it just takes so many twists and turns, and like the DA didn't want anything to do with it, even though we had plenty of evidence of them doing illegal activity with minors. Um, those who weren't our accounts, these are actual, you know, and the DA still didn't want to do anything because it was civilian work. And I'm like, just because it's civilian work doesn't mean that there aren't actual children being harmed. Hello, but he didn't like it. So one of the officers on the police department, the one of the head investigators, she felt compassion for our situation and joined the Wolf Project and is operating on the case right now and trying her best to gather information and evidence against them so to get them taken down. But it's like it gets like 10 times crazier than that. Like the more we find out, it's like, whoa, like, whoa, you know?
Well,
So,
yeah, no, that makes me sick. I'll definitely have to talk to, I have a really good friend that's a cop. She's actually been on the podcast, and I know she's doesn't work specifically with this kind of stuff, but I'd be
hmm
curious to say, like, there has to be some kind of legal reason why they don't want to work with civilians, that they're afraid of getting in trouble. Like, that has to be, because that can't be your answer consistently unless there's something blocking you from,
yeah.
like, it's got to just either be harder and you don't want to put in the work because it's
hmm
harder, or there has to be a legal block, because that seems to be everybody's answer. And I don't feel like they're pulling that out of their ass, but I'm just kind of like,
Yeah.
what do we need to fix legality wise with our, legislative system, so
Yeah.
that that's not something that they're going to respond with. That's the hard part. But
Right.
where is the documentary being aired? Because Kyle and there was that one, I think it was on HBO Max, that they did a while back. I don't know if you watched it, where they used bait accounts and everything like that, and they walked through the process, and it was so interesting. So Kyle and I are kind of like hooked.
Are you talking about Underage Undercover?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Those girls are awesome. Yes. Um, we don't know yet. He's filming it. The producer's filming it, and then he's gonna try to sell it. But I know that the teaser episode is going to be aired on YouTube TV,
Okay.
and then they're going to try to sell it to a network after that. So I don't know where it will go, if it goes anywhere at all. I totally don't care. I just want pedophiles to be in prison. So
Well,
I think it's cool, but
I think it will definitely go somewhere, because, like I said, it's in a weird way, it's sad, but also, like, our fascination with this as human beings,
yeah,
as much as, like, we can acknowledge it's bad, we're fascinated with it. So I mean, I
yeah.
do think the views will be there. I think that that'll definitely be something that takes off. So you'll have to let me know when it airs, and, like, I'll
hmm
also provide a little link in the bio for people to, like,
That'd
make
be
sure that they
cool.
find it and everything when it drops. But that's very interesting. Okay, so that one's chaos. I can't wait to see how that plays out, because you said that'll be the pilot episode.
Mhm.
Okay. So we'll see how that one plays out, but I'm
I know.
very curious. I guess my next question on Wolf Project, before we kind of turn back to psychic stuff, is what is the process to get involved with the Wolf Project? And do you kind of have a large number of people you can accept? Do you only do certain areas, or is it kind of very tailored and specific?
Yeah. So in the past, we've done live trainings where it was just like a Zoom session with about 30 people at a time, and gone through everything that we train on. And then once they go through that training, they can be accepted into the network. They obviously have to pass their background check before they even get to the training.
Mhm.
Um, and that was all through the website. Now we've put all that on hold, and on December 20th, we're launching a virtual training. And so what can happen is they'll go on to the website, they'll purchase a membership, which is a monthly subscription now. And that just helps with the funding of the organization, because we don't accept government grants. We
Okay.
want to be privately funded, for reasons. So all of it goes to everything that we're working towards as far as boots on the ground and helping actual children in real life and things like that. So um, it'll be a monthly subscription. It's only $15 a month, and then it has a virtual course. It's not long at all. It's like 20 total minutes, but after they take the course, they have to take a test to test their comprehension, make sure that they know what they're getting themselves into, and that they comprehend, how to do it, and do's and don'ts and tricks and tips and all the things. So they'll take the test. Once they pass it, we run their background check, and then if they pass their background check, then they'll be submitted into the network, and we'll put them into their groups from there. So it's all through the website. Yeah.
Okay. And you're right now at this point, are you only kind of operating within the United States, or are you kind of expanding outside of that? What's kind of the process?
Yeah, most of our work is in the United States, but we technically have Reapers in 16 different countries.
Wow, that's very cool. That's very cool.
Yeah.
So, as you're doing this process and bringing on more people, if there's people involved or that want to be involved but technically not as reapers, do you have a donation system as well, since you're not government funded?
Yes, absolutely. Everything is on the website. There are also opportunities to volunteer that aren't reaper based. So we need people on an admin staff that can answer emails, that can, help me whenever I'm traveling to speak or whatever it is. So we need volunteers in all aspects, especially social media. And that application is also on the website as well.
Perfect. So there's tons of ways to help. Okay, perfect. Let's
Yes.
transition a little bit back to psychic stuff.
Okay.
I am curious, what is like the hardest part about being an intuitive and like having to deal with all of that kind of stuff going on all the time?
Number one, it's really draining. And a lot of people don't understand why you're so tired all the time.
Hmm.
But believe it or not, the hardest thing for me personally is knowing why people behave the way that they behave. Even with some of the predators that we encounter, I get snapshots of what they went through and I feel sympathy for them. And to the general public, I should be this rock star villain, that hates everybody, that harms a child. And don't get me wrong, I'm not condoning it at all. But I do feel sympathy for them in their child state, or people who are hateful at work or whatever it is. People that I should hate, I don't, because I know why, you know, and I
I
think
feel
that's
like,
hard.
yeah, well, I feel like, again, it goes back to the fascination that we have as human, like the human race. I think the reason we're so into murder stories and like, the child trafficking is because there is dichotomy to it. Like,
Hmm.
you hear about these terrible serial killers that like, oh, well, but they were super abused as kids, or like there's a reason to it, and it doesn't justify anything, but it explains. I think justify and explaining are very different. Like,
Yeah.
justified is like condoning it and saying it's okay. Explaining it is just like acknowledging that there's an outside influence that might have been a cause for it. And I feel like that's kind of the hard part, is like there are people out there that they're that way because they were abused. Or I don't know if you know the statistic, but isn't it like the majority of pedophiles usually
Mhm.
were abused as children?
Yeah. I don't know the number, but yes, I do know that that part is true. Yeah.
And that's just like so crazy to me, because it's a cycle. And like how you said with that dad and the daughter and the son, like he created that cycle, and I would put
Hmm.
money down that he probably was abused by a parent or something like that, or
Hmm.
somebody within that system.
Yeah.
And it's hard because even if you guys do catch those guys and they get arrested, like how do those children then break that cycle? I think that's the hardest part. So i
Right.
can i can see where there's like sympathy, maybe not sympathy, but like understanding for sure.
Yeah.
As people are, I feel like more and more people are like acknowledging and accepting their abilities, whether it's earthly or not. What is like something that you would suggest to people on like kind of accepting their abilities, or how to kind of own those abilities and not feel insecure about them or scared of them?
Hmm. Um, I think the best advice that I could give somebody who's starting their journey is to go through the dark night of the soul. You know, practice your ice baths, practice your taking cold showers and things like that, because those things, those acts of discipline, teach you to not shy away from being uncomfortable, but to face it and do it. Um, there's tons of benefits with ice baths, but that's for me the main one of facing what's uncomfortable. Because I used to just anything that was uncomfortable, try my best to avoid it, and I can't do that. And um, the moment that I faced everything in me that I hated, everything that I didn't like, and had those few dark night of the souls where I just scream cried and went through my trauma and relived the moments that were the worst of my childhood. It wasn't until then that I started to like myself. That's when I gained the confidence to like that side of me as well, you know? So go through the dark night of the soul. Let it suck, let it hurt, cry, scream, punch a wall, whatever you got to do, get through it, and then start using the tools necessary to give you the confidence. I really love oracle cards. I love tarot cards. If they don't make you afraid, I was terrified of all those things when I first started. Um, and we can go into the whole, oh, it's demons, it's not, kind of thing. But use the tools. I mean, they're there for a reason, and they really help your confidence a lot, because what you can do is learn to read tarot or have oracle cards. That takes no kind of learn it all, and then feel it out, get your intuition, flowing, and then start pulling the cards. And then when the cards start showing that your intuition was correct before you even saw a card, then you start getting that confidence to go, I know what that is. I know what that feels like. I know you're experiencing this because I feel it this way. And so, yeah, dark night of the soul and then practice.
I know I've always found it so wild when people like feel like tarot cards are demonic, because in my head, even as a non-psychic, I'm like, whether you want to call them angels because you're Christian, or it's
Mm-hmm.
spirit guides or whatever it is, like I'm not pulling the cards. They're pulling the cards. They're like, that's a
Mm-hmm.
sign from them. And I've just always found it so wild that like the Christian religion wants to jump to the negative of demons instead of the positive towards angels, which, we're
Yeah.
taught when we're little that our angels are around us all the time and that we have like, angel buddies. But then like when those angel buddies want to do the work, we're calling them demons. And I'm like, where did that come from? Like,
Yeah.
I know it's
Yeah.
not, I'm not trying to say like, like clearly with your line of work, usually you see more negative than you see positive, but
Mm-hmm.
it's wild that I feel like our human brain is trained to always think negative before we think positive. And in some
Yeah.
circumstances, it's protective of us. But in this circumstance, I always just found it crazy that we're so willing to let go of like the
Mm-hmm.
positiveness of angels that were, I feel like when I was a kid, like guardian angel was like a total thing. Haven't heard anything about it as an adult. Like nobody talks about that anymore. Like,
I know, right? Yeah, I think that's it's such a tough topic. I know in the Bible, one of my favorite verses was 2 Timothy 1:7. It says, "For I do not give you the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and self-discipline." And so I think it's quite comical when Christians do come at me and say, "That's a demon." And it's like, you're operating from a heart space of fear. That's what that is. You've always been told that God would only present as this. And Jesus's whole mission was to disprove that. That was a whole Pharisee thing that he came down here and called them every name in the book for operating out of religion and not relationship. And I really think that the best way to overcome something like that is education.
yeah.
Outside of the Bible, you have to be able to open your consciousness, expand your frequency, and kind of raise to a point where you're not afraid. You're not afraid to deconstruct if you have to. You may not even have to. But, like I said, face it, face the parts of you that are uncomfortable, face the parts of life that are uncomfortable. Um, and the more that I got educated, I told you about the Dolores Cannon books.
Yeah.
And I just think she's incredibly credible. I think I don't feel anything sly or,
Where's she
greedy.
based out of?
So she's actually passed. So a lot of her books were published in like the 80s, 90s.
Okay.
Yeah, but a lot of her work was done in the 60s and
Okay.
70s. So that just tells you like it's been going on for a long time, but the
Oh
truth
yeah.
is like finally reaching me at least. But it just shows you that it's energy. It's not, just because it's scary and it's unknown, it's not demons. When the TV first came out, Christians said it was demonic. When white people started dating black people, they said it's demonic. It's things that they don't understand, and that causes fear in them.
Yeah.
If it's anything that's not illicitly explained in the Bible, it's just got to be demonic. There's no other explanation for it. But I like to think about it in the sense of energy, which it is. It's not got anything to do with the devil or, whispering lies to me or me betraying my faith or those things. It's just atoms. It's just electrons. That's all it is. And I have a background, my degree's in biology and chemistry. So like this is something that I really have a good grasp on. If you believe a microwave works, you can believe in psychics. It's the same thing.
It's so
So
crazy to think about that. I always am pulling the astrology card of people are like, it's made up. It's not science. And I'm like, but quite literally, like the tides are pulled by the planet. Like we're made of
mhm,
water. Like that. There's just so many things that are surrounded by our planet, and you're going to tell me that the planet's position doesn't change your composition? Like that literally doesn't make sense to me. That people can't believe that. Like it's it's wild when your mind is so expanded, how you realize other people's aren't. And I'm like, how can you not
right.
like process that? But I love the idea that, you said Dolores, right? That was her name?
Mhm, mhm.
That she was like the 60s, because I feel like we also have just like called people like that witches and like associated like the witch thing. And now we're starting to like love the idea of like being witchy and like it's popular now. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
they were all doing like in the 60s. Like that's what was happening. But I'm bummed that she's no longer with us because I'm obsessed with past life regressions and I can never find good people to do them. And I just like, I want to dive into that more. I've had one before and I feel like there was moments that I felt like truth in it, but I also felt like I could be doing this with somebody more educated on it or better.
Mhm.
So like
Mhm.
the search for a past life regression person has been difficult. So if you have recommendations, you'll have to send them to me. But it's
Yeah.
definitely, I think that that is like the coolest thing because that's where my like Buddhism and Hinduism comes in. I do believe like we're having multiple lives and things like that. So I want to dive into that more. I feel like it'll make me understand myself better because I feel like I am a repeater of patterns. So I feel like knowing more might either, I'm not even saying it'll help me break them because I might still acknowledge, oh, this is a pattern, but I'm still going to do it. But like knowing that pattern, I think is so fascinating. But past life regression is big on my list. There was another thing that I saw on your TikTok the other day, and I was like, I have to ask her about it. What is the, and I don't even know if it's like related to psychic at all, but you said something about like a muddy water dream. Like, explain what is a muddy water dream?
So anytime that water is it's a perfect sign in dreams. And again, this is my opinion, but what I've noticed is that anytime that you dream of muddy water, that is an implication that troubled times are upon you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same for like clear water, crystal clear water is a great sign that the Holy Spirit, I say the Holy Spirit, you can say, angels, whatever, your spirit team, is just surrounding you, and so there's just different, the quality of the water depends kind of on what's coming or what kind of energy is around you. So,
Okay. So a lot
yeah.
more. I didn't know how sinister it was gonna get. I was very curious. But do you feel like you dream in like psychic dreams all the time, or is it kind of sporadic?
No, and this is why a lot of psychics will tell you that everybody is psychic. I know you keep saying you're not psychic, but if you delved into it, you would surprise yourself. I promise. Um, I don't always have those vivid dreams. My life isn't like walking around with like, that's so Raven. um, I'm very normal. I'm a very normal human
Very
being.
normal, she
Yeah,
said.
mildly on the spectrum, but that's okay. Um,
Love it.
Yeah, so no, my dreams are not always very vivid. I know the difference between that was my soul versus that was me processing the day's events. And, it's just, it comes and goes. I'm not always seeing into the future. So, yeah.
No, like I said, and it's the same with like the pedophiles, and I feel like it's the same with psychics. Our TV shows mess up our minds of like what they really
Hmm.
are. Like you referenced that so Raven, like, yeah, no, nobody's like walking around their school and just like making a
Right.
weird face and disappearing for an hour, like, or nobody's, Liam Neesoning and going and saving their daughter from human traffickers in the Middle East. Like that's just not happening. And yet like I feel like we need more conversations like this online
Hmm.
because I feel like our media is just like completely mixing up everybody's heads. Nobody knows what to believe anymore. And I feel like obviously this is an American problem more than anything, but we don't know what to believe anymore. I feel like I'm constantly flooded with information from one side, but then I get more from the other side and then I'm more confused. Like I never feel
Yeah.
clarity. And I just feel like there's no realism anymore. Like I don't, which is so hard and like a completely different topic and concept, but like it's so wild to think that we have no way of really fact checking anymore. We started with the internet and Google was our fact checker. We were now at the our fingertips. We didn't have to go to a library. We didn't have to get a dictionary. Like we could check everything on Google, but now Google is so flooded with other things that it's like you can't trust it anymore. So it's a new world that I don't really know where we go from here, but I'm very curious to see. I love that you're starting projects that gear towards the growth of social media because our government cannot keep up with it as much as they pretend they want to. They can and they
Yeah.
want to. And I'm not devaluing the sophistication of like the FBI and CIA's technology. I know they can do a lot more than us as civilians can,
Hmm.
but it's
Yeah.
more the time and the resources. Like,
Right.
yeah, okay, you have the sophisticated technology, but you're going home from your job and still needing a work life balance, which you deserve as I very respect and value that, like, my cop friends, like, they need to have a work balance. Like, my friend, she works nights, and like she works the weirdest hours, and she works 7 days a week, and I'm like, what? You need balance, but
Yeah.
because you have to turn it off, you need more people that are passionate about it, that are doing it in their free time and like taking
Right.
that slack off. So why you wouldn't want to collaborate on that is wild. I also think, for your perspective, showing that you're an organization, showing that you have a group of people. It's not like me just deciding, hey, I'm going to do this in my little town of Tampa and I'm just going to take out people on my own. That I could see why they might be concerned with.
Yeah.
But like, you've developed an organization, which you should be very proud of. And it's just one
Hmm.
of those things where I just don't understand why they're not a little more accommodating. That's all.
I mean, I think that what you're saying with the media and stuff, there was a group in Canada just recently, a couple years back, that kind of went rogue. They did the exact same thing that we do, but then they went rogue, and I think they actually ended up hurting or actually killing a guy. So they're trying to avoid that, and I understand that. Plus, everybody gets viral now when they go and do these meetups with pedophiles. And I understand why people are pushed to do those things because we do make the reports and sometimes things don't happen. They just don't do anything with it. And I understand the frustration. But a lot of people support that behavior of going and confronting the pedophile. Yes, short term, awesome. I would love to do it. I would love to just absolutely, you know, do the worst. But at the end of the day, all that happens is that person is humiliated and then they go home and do the exact same thing. They log back into their accounts and they continue to harm children, you know? So,
Let's not also forget the reality of that is, cool, you got a reward in the short term. You feel vindicated, you feel powerful, but
mm-hmm,
quite literally, if something is to go wrong and you can't do it anymore or you're dead, think about all the kids you're not helping. Like,
right.
literally, you're
Yeah.
cutting yourself short. Like, your safety is number one because you can't do it anymore if you're not
Mm-hmm,
safe. Like,
right.
all of a sudden you're in witness protection program. Guess what? You're not helping kids anymore. Like, your mission's gone. Was that worth it? Like, it's,
Right. Yeah.
yeah. And I'm a believer in, I just, it's weird, and like, not to get into the like jail system and everything like that and prison systems, because I could go on a tangent about that. I did my thesis
Mm-hmm,
on it, and like, it's wild, that kind of aspect. But I do believe, as much as our government is really failing us lately, I do
mm-hmm,
believe that there is a justice system for a reason, and we do have a court system that people need to go through, and this
mm-hmm.
vigilante killing is just not it. Also, personal opinion that I probably shouldn't be sharing on the internet, but I'd much rather a pedophile suffer and get raped in jail for years than be dead. So like, I don't know,
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
personal opinion. I'm a little bit more reap what you sow kind of vibes, but
Yeah. I'm the
I
same way.
just I just don't get the whole vigilante killing thing. And I know it's a thing, or like, you see
Mm-hmm,
these dads in courts and they're like, I saw, it was like a while ago, but it was like a dad jumping over like the seats in court trying to strangle the guy. And I was like, I get it, but like, now you're going to go to jail. You're not there for your daughter. And like, there's no punishment for that guy anymore. Like, he's just dead now. Like, it doesn't get you anything. So I
yeah.
feel like people get hot headed and think about the short term instead of the long term,
Oh,
which
yeah.
doesn't help. But yeah, vigilante killing definitely is probably not going to help anybody's case, especially programs like yours.
Yeah.
So that reminder to people out there that, A, don't do this by yourself. This is my disclaimer
Mm-hmm.
for everybody. Don't go out and do this by yourself. If you're interested, reach out to Gabrielle and she'll help you.
Yes.
And don't approach pedophiles. Now that you said it, I've seen like one on TikTok. I don't think I'm deep on that side of TikTok like you are, but I've seen one person that like approached like a school principal and was like, we have this
Yeah.
proof on you. And I was like, that feels dangerous. And like, you're not even getting a good shot of their face because you're trying to film it secretly. Like, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, I know that these people have the best intentions in the world. I really do. And like I said, I understand why people feel pushed that that's their only option. I get that. But like you said, it's just a short-term thing. These guys, I mean the statistics, they reoffend. You release them from prison, they're going to reoffend. It's just built inside them. They cannot control it. And so, I really do wish that we could punish or we could humiliate and them change their ways, but it's not forever. it's only a band-aid, and next thing you know, it's a ticking time bomb, you know. And so I don't know. Yeah, like I said, I don't want to throw hate towards them. I understand. I appreciate their passion behind it, but I just don't think that that's the method. I definitely know it's not the method me and my organization want to go in. Yeah.
Well, and I also feel that it's the hype to go viral right now is so high. It also makes me worry that like there'll be a lot of fake content created over it.
Yeah. Yeah, which is dangerous because then you teach people that this is how this encounter is always going to go. And so regular people who have no idea, yes, they have a fire in their heart, but then they go out on the streets, they approach this person, and then what do you do when they have a gun? Then what
Yeah.
do you do? What do you do? And this is something that I've faced before. What do you do when they kill themselves over something that you got them prosecuted for? Then how do you feel? How do you carry yourself for the rest of your life knowing that blood is on your hands? You know, maybe yes, it's for the right reasons, but it's a tougher thing to process than people understand,
Oh yeah.
you know.
It's not, I mean, it's kind of against human nature. Like we're not running around taking others' lives. Maybe back when we were like sticking stones together and making
Yeah.
fire, but like we're not like killing people anymore. Like that's not the human journey. So
Mhm.
like adding that into that human process has to take a mental toll on you. But I'm
Yeah.
curious to know before we completely wrap up, what are your like opinions on rehabilitation? Do you feel like that's just not really a thing that works?
There's no science behind it, unfortunately. I've looked at the science behind like even chemical castration, even surgical castration. It's a mind thing. It's here, it's not down there. So lowering the testosterone levels did nothing. Um,
Okay.
so I don't know. I don't want to sit here and say that rehabilitation isn't a thing or that no one has accomplished it because I'm sure that there have been people who have fought really hard. There's plenty of organizations out there that are, I forget what the organization is called, but it's basically pedophiles that kind of claim that they're pedophiles. They all live in one area and they stay away from children because they don't want to harm a kid.
It's in Florida. It's in Florida. It's not far from where I live, which is terrifying. But what's it called? It's like a trailer park and they all live there.
Yes,
They've done a ton of documentaries on it. I'll have to find it and send it to you. But it's in
yes.
Florida.
Yeah, and there's other organizations like that. And so, you know, there's like this, I don't know what it is. I really don't know what, if it's a genetic thing or you know, solely a traumatic coping mechanism. I don't know. But as far as rehabilitation from people who have offended, like not just thought about it, but offended, their reoffense rate is like almost 100%. You know, it's pretty dangerous. So I don't know. I don't know. There's no science to suggest that rehabilitation for previous offenders is possible.
Well, and I
So,
think the problem with our legislative that hasn't caught up and a lot of people's minds when they're voting and making these choices is that legislative itself for rehabilitation programs, they're not necessarily specific to what the offense was. So like
mhm,
rehabilitation for drugs, totally doable.
mhm,
Rehabilitation for like theft, totally doable. I don't, maybe not murder if it's like a serial killer because I feel like that's deep rooted, but
right.
like gang related violence, like those things are like you're able to rehabilitate that. So like we're putting these programs in and everybody's like, well, I'm pro rehabilitation, and I'm like, that's great, but you're not specifying what kind. And
Yeah.
I think that's the big difference because I totally believe that like if you're a meth head and you go to jail for, you know, possession, I do think you can be rehabilitated.
Mhm,
That's not something that's chemically in your brain, that's something that's an addiction and that's fixable. Or armed robbery, like let's say it was because you were struggling financially and things like that, like that's fixable, but you
yeah.
can't fix something that's ingrained in you. And I feel like that's where people like don't realize like pedophilia is something that we're seeing is kind of, it's so deep rooted. And I did
Yeah.
not know that about like the chemical castration and stuff like that, that it hasn't shown any like actual evidence of working. So like that's just another justification where like rehabilitation, when you're voting and when you're making decisions on that with your local legislative, you need to like be aware that rehabilitation does not necessarily, you know, cover all of them. I think that that's,
Yeah.
we need to get more specific with our government. We need to do, not to political rant, we need to do away with our political parties, our two political
Mhm.
parties.
Yes.
We need to reformat our legislative and honestly, I feel like we need to start doing more voting locally. I feel like we need to become a little mini Europe where each state's a little bit different because this is out of control.
I'm totally with all of that for sure. Yeah. I
I
was
feel
just
like,
in Washington not long ago at a congressional briefing, and it was even more prevalent to me there that I was like, we got to do something because no one's hearing us. And that's the most helpless feeling of it all is actually trying to work with the government, and they're swamped, they're overrun, they're tired, they don't know. There's so many different situations. Like you said, the internet is growing faster, it's outrunning everybody from the legislation that's involved with it. So yeah, I mean, I totally agree. It's time for a reset button.
yep.
So
No, it's time. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed this. You are an absolute badass. I'm going to put all of your information in all the little comedy blurbs at the bottom. So I'll definitely have all of that. So if anybody listening is interested in learning how to help with the Wolf Project, wants to donate, wants to just learn more, definitely follow Gabrielle on TikTok. But yes, I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you for having me on. It was nice to meet you.
It was great to meet you too.